Hey dudes, welcome to another episode of Tutorial Mode. This episode I kind of wanted to do for quite some time now because this question is a question that I get kind of often actually. So it is based on how to build your mage team, how to make a mage team, what you should be looking out for in terms of mage relics, what characters are good and stuff like that. I'm not going to go through it in full detail, but I'll give you some hints. I kind of don't want this episode to be fully about how good Sid Raines' BSB is, but I might as well compare it right now. So let's go into relic draws because it is available to us right now. I'm not saying draw for it because it does come back later on anyway. But for you guys that are pretty excited, why is Sid Raines' BSB so good? Deal 6 magic dark attacks, dark and holy attacks to one target. That bit is okay. Raise the magic of all allies a moderate amount and defense a small amount. This buff is pretty unique. You don't really see it that often. So it does stack with a lot of magic buffs, say Sheep Song and all that stuff, all that good stuff. And grant haste and burst mode to the user. And it even does a buff to all allies, not just himself. So that is super good. Burst abilities is what makes this pretty interesting as well. It's what makes Sid Raines nuker, I guess. So we have Shining Moment. Deal 4 magic, dark, and holy attacks to one target and remove delay from the user's magic attacks for one turn. So you can pretty much keep spamming this over and over again. But first you'll want to cast his second attack, which lowers the user's resistance a moderate amount and raises the user's magic a moderate amount. Even though it's a self buff, it does stack with his first buff, and that also stacks with the magic buff. So overall, the magic buffs are pretty insane, and this first attack, which you'll be able to spam pretty often because it's instant, makes it so good. It's absolutely insane. So we have one burst ability which gains magic, one burst ability which does instant attacks. The thing is, you want to round out your magic team, so either you can do quite a few things actually. You can make one of your character's abilities more powerful by adding in Imperil. So Sid Raines' BSB actually goes well with Kuj's BSB because Kuj's BSB does a Dark Imperil. So if you want to go that route, you can go that route. We even have Gold Bez's one, which is pretty interesting because that also has Dark Attacks. So you can pretty much make a full Dark Magic party if you really wanted to. I kind of like that. That you can do that, but it's not really my thing, to be honest. I kind of like mixing things up, using different characters. I don't really like to stay with the same mage team. So what other things should we be looking at? Well, as you know, when I always go through relic discussions or relic reviews, I assess how good the super soul breaks are, and usually the super soul breaks are an element, or even the BSBs are an elements. So say VVs. VVs is a magic fire and non-elemental damage to one target. So unfortunately, if the boss is, can absorb fire, then he would use non-elemental damage. That's the most unfortunate thing that can happen because you can use his SSB, which does the whole end fire thing, or is it his BSB? His BSB does the end fire, and then his OSB, which does fire damage, but it would actually do non-elemental damage because the boss would absorb it. That's why it says the or, if you didn't know that. So if the boss is resistant, then he would use the non-elemental attack. Burst abilities wise, this is pretty common, doing 2 AoEs and 4 single targets, so nothing really great about VV, but if these two are the only relics that you have, then sure, use VV on your team. You can pretty much have, this is what I would do. In my case, I use 3 black magic users. So it can be Terra, Renoa, whoever you want. But they have to have pretty good BSBs, good damaging BSBs, such as VVs. Just use VV as an example because it is pretty common. So say if we have VV, we would want 2 other black mages as well. Can be whoever you want. But the third and the fourth is I mean the 4th and the 5th, is pretty important as well, because you would need a white magic user, which can be, I use either Vanille, because Vanille's one goes well with the black magic team. I think it's in one of the phases. I forgot what phase exactly. I really don't like going into relic draws because of the music over and over and over again. So why use Vanille in a magic party? The burst ability is pretty good, as you know, mainly because it's instant. But it's mainly because of the temporary lower its resistance a moderate amount a bit. So you don't really need to bring a mental breakdown for a support character, and so that frees up a slot already, because you would want to bring... I prefer bringing one support character such as Tyro, because Tyro can either be a magic user or a support. He can do everything. So I usually use him as a support. Either Onion Knight as well, you can use as well, because Onion Knight has the BSB, which is fairly important as well because it does magic attacks as well. So you want to add the support in just to, of course, use full break, but you don't need mental breakdown if you have Vanille's BSB, so that's one thing as well. And you would also want to use, say, power breakdown sometimes, because you would need to lower his power. It's not that important, power breakdown, so that's why I'm kind of iffy on that one, because all your members would of course be in the back row. So range physical attacks, they do occur, but it's not that big. So for your support character, sure, full break and magic breakdown is probably the most important ones. So like I said, you'll use probably along these lines. So Tyro, Yestola, I'm just using Yestola as an example, but Vanille is probably the best choice, mainly because of the mental break. And we have 3 random... I don't think I have any good magic users actually on this account. I do have Christus for a buff as well. Those additional Haystaga buffs are good as well, because you would need another magic buff to actually buff your whole team, of course. And that's pretty much all I have. So I'd be looking out for one more magic user. But other than that, it is pretty simple when you think about it. You need one character to buff, one character to buff and to do attacks. That's why I kind of like Krill as well, because she can buff. She does the Haystaga buff, she does the magic buff, and also major regen, isn't it? Which isn't that important. You would mainly be using the Haystaga and the magic buff. Christus is kind of the Haystaga, of course. Unfortunately, no magic buff for me. And I do have Terra's BSB, it's just not mastered. So Terra's kind of my common black mage, kind of my all-arounder there. And then for your Tyro, I would probably use Sentinels. Yeah, sure, Sentinels is fine. Then Magic Breakdown. I can use Mental Breakdown if I do not have Vanille in my team. So that's a good thing as well. I actually don't have Mental Breakdown because I haven't really been focusing on my Mage team for this account, unfortunately. But you kind of get the point there. Now, abilities-wise, this is another question I get pretty often. What abilities should you hone and what abilities should you create? So let's get into the magic point. So you know, for a support you would need Mental Breakdown, Magic Breakdown, all those kind of stuff, and Full Break as well. Full Break's very important. You can also bring dancers, because I think Penella can use 5-star dancers, so that can be pretty useful as well. Okay. Oh, one good thing about Yestola that I didn't mention is she can also equip the support ability. So say if you have Christus doing your Shelga, you can get Yestola to use another breakdown. So it would round out your team even more. So it makes it pretty damn good. That's what I usually do with my mage team, because sometimes I don't really like using Vanille. I really like the stone skin effect. That's the main reason why. Okay, enough getting sidetracked there. I want to go to create abilities. Let's look at the magic. So we'll start with 3-star magic first, because that's when you first start up the game. Comet is a pretty good all-arounder ability. Non-elemental magic damage to one target. Pretty simple stuff. Non-elemental damage can be used with any enemy, so it can be pretty good in the early stages because it's an ability that you always have on the side if you're not exposing the enemy's weakness. That's the most common ability that I used in my early days. Not really so much now because you can farm 4-star orbs pretty easily now. So of course Firaga, Blizzaga, Thundaga, Watergar, you want to get all those, but if you want to skip all that like me, if you think you're better than that, then Stoker is pretty good as well too. Okay. Quake was the first AoE attack, Earth magic damage to all targets. It is the first AoE magic attack we actually got. So really good stuff to actually get at the start. And of course we had the Firaja, Blizzaja, Thundaja, Waterja. I would recommend honing all those probably to R3, R4, because you would be using them fairly often because 5-star abilities are pretty hard to hone. So definitely hone all these, including Byoga as well. Darkra, not really a problem because there's so many. If you want to create a all-dark team, I think you can, but just relying on soul breaks anyway. So I wouldn't really worry too much about Darkra. Drenga, not really. Stonegar, sure, why not? Stonegar's really if you don't want to use Quake, if you want to focus on one enemy. Now we get into the good stuff. The chain abilities, they're really difficult to hone. So I don't recommend going from at the start, probably later on when you're feeling more confident in beating the ultimate plus fights and all that. But first off, I would recommend Meteor. It's your first ever full charge non-elemental magic damage. So really good stuff, this one. Huge multiplier as well. Flare, I'll skip it completely because it's only one attack and you would want to get these for the multi-strikes. So that's pretty much it, really. So definitely get one of each for the Blizzages. If you need another set of magic attacks, you of course have like the Blizzagas here and stuff. Because when I was versing Ifrit, I was using Blizzaja, I was using Chain Blizzaga on another character, and I was even using Blizzaga on another character. So you have 3 types of magic attacks that you can use for each character. Each of the same types, that's what I mean. So, and then, finally, 6 stars. Meltdown, probably, honestly, the best black magic ability that you can get in the game for quite a bit of time, actually. 3 devastating magic, fire, wind, and earth attacks to one target. Someone asked me if it's still worth using at R1. Yes, it is, definitely. Super powerful attack, even if you're using once. Because the chain, Blizzagas and stuff, you wouldn't really have much hones on that. You would probably have it to R3 at maximum. So I wouldn't rush the chain. So definitely having, say, a Blizzaja at R4 and a Meltdown, really good. I'll totally ignore Ultima though. I feel like even though it has a kind of good ability to all enemies, I would prefer to use Meltdown because the majority of the time you are versing single bosses anyway. White magic, like I said, you'll probably be good with Curaja, Ultra Cure, and you would be using either Shelgar, Wrath, and all that. You know the gist of it, but I'll probably do another episode on that. Like I said, support characters, or the breakdowns, either dancers as well, if you want to go that approach. If you don't want to use physical attacks, you can even equip Tyra with dancers, Penella with dancers, but you want to use multi-breakdown. So that's it for that. I don't think there's anything else I need to cover specifically that I can think of on the top of my head. There is ninja abilities as well if you want to chuck in a ninja in your party, but I'll probably talk about that later on as well. But hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea about how to kind of round up your mage team, how to go about drawing for relics. You really want to look at what increases different types of... well, what's a good word for it? What different types of magic buffs there is in the game, really. So there are magic buffs which just solely do a magic buff, and magic buffs which do the magic and resistance and all that stuff. So I do have Fire Lash. Holy shit. Well, there you go. I finished my mage team already. We got this. We can use Krill, which I haven't even got, I think. Damn it, I don't even have Krill. And we also have Ash. I wouldn't really worry about OSBs. Like I said, you kind of want to pair it up with your SSB or BSB, depending if you have their N elements. But when you're just starting out the game, you'll just want to fucking nuke them anyway, so it's not really that important. But looks like those are my main... I'd probably use it over Christus, because I have Sentinel's Grimoire. I can buff up my team, and then Ash can just fucking nuke him anyway. So really good stuff. You can kind of consider things. If you do have questions, let me know, and I'll work on it in the next episode. But I'll see you guys later. Hope you have a good one. Hope you learned something as well. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.